Talk high school baseball.
Makes sense. With snow in the air, it makes sense to talk baseball.
And one of the top Nick 10 teams in our area is Hononegah, and with us right now is Coach Matt Simpson. First of all, Coach, thanks for being on. Are you still going to take that bus ride today? And if you are, where are you going?
We are. It got pushed back, though. We're not going to take off till about 10:15. We're going to start a little later today because obviously the weather's not cooperating. We're headed over to Rock Island, and actually they didn't get any snow, so that's the good news.
Good.
But it's going to be cold and windy, so spring baseball in Northern Illinois.
You know, when we look at your team, you know, one of the consistent things over the years has always been pitching. You guys always have dominant pitching. It looks to be that case with some of the guys you have returning this year. Why don't you talk some about the pitching staff you have coming back this year?
Well, we got, our top two kids back from last year that threw for us in the regionals, Kyle Blunt and Connor Thornbloom, are both lefties who are able to throw several pitches for strikes at any counts, which in high school, that's the magic formula. If you can throw a couple pitches for strikes and not put people on base via the walk, you're always going to have a chance to beat teams.
You know, when you look at your team this year, you guys are one of the favorites. A lot of people talk about you, always Boylan and Harlem and stuff. That's got to be a pretty good feeling to be able to be in that top level of that bunch, because that's pretty good baseball.
Yeah, it is. Harlem's got a ton of talent coming back. They have several kids with multiple years of experience at the varsity level, and Boylan's always Boylan. They're very well coached, and their kids play hard. They play the game the right way, and to be mentioned with them is a testament to our program and the work ethic for our kids to be up in that top third of the conference year in and year out.
I think one of the things that's been fun probably over the last few years is, we've seen teams like East pop up in there. Freeport's had some good years in there. The Belvedere programs have really improved. How much has that depth helped kind of push you guys maybe to another level, especially, when it obviously gets to regionals and if you get into the sectionals?
Yeah, I think, when you're Harlem and Hononegah and Boylan, sometimes our conference doesn't get as much credit as what it deserves, I think. And when you're one of the top three teams, it seems like you're always seeing everybody's number one or number two, no matter what, the way that our league schedule is set up without being series play. So I think that helps us, going into postseason, that we're seeing consistent pitching. And, like you said, you look around at some of the teams that aren't mentioned to be in the top third, and they all have that one guy that's like, ooh, boy, if we see him on any given day, that's going to be a tough game for us to win. So I do think that, baseball in our conference is a little bit better than what people think, and sometimes doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
We were talking about, field conditions and things. Do you ever think we'll see a turf field in our area that high schools can use? I mean, someplace where you guys could schedule games all day long, and since we're all so close together in the Nick 10, and would that be something that you would root for to happen in the future?
Oh, there's no doubt. I'm not 100% sure what's going on at the Sports Core 2 complex, but I've heard that they're doing some turf fields. I don't know if they're going to be, for high school use, and if they're, the dimensions are going to be that for high school. But if it is, that would be something that definitely, we would be interested in, because on days like this, even where you're getting snow or rain in the morning, and 15 minutes later you can have the field ready to be played. Where on the standard fields, that's not always the case. So that would be definitely something that we would be interested in, and I think it would be a great experience for our kids too.
We talked earlier about the pitching on your team, and obviously, unless you're going to throw no hitters every time, you got to have some offense too. Who are some of the guys you're going to be leaning on the offensive side?
Well, right now we've been pretty consistent from top to bottom in our order. We've actually hit more this spring than we have previously, so hopefully that continues. We've been scoring some runs, and our top of our order has been good, and middle of our order has been good, and our bottoms really produce for us as well. So if we can get consistency like that 1 through 9, and just compete in our bats and make pitchers work and get pitch counts up against opposing pitchers and things like that, that's something that we've done in the past, but we haven't necessarily had the guy who then can come and pop a 2-run double or something like that. I think we got a little bit more of that this year, and we got guys that can execute some hit and runs and hit the ball the other way, and we've been doing a good job in our bunting game this year, so all that makes us a little bit more powerful offensively.
You talked about building that consistency in the offense. How tough is that to do, especially in this area where you might, it sounds like you might get your game in today, but you get some cancellations, things like that. And, you guys might go sometimes a week without playing a game, just because of weather.
Yeah, it's been more difficult on us this year with the dome going down and things like that. But the nice thing is we were able to get outside right away after that first week because the weather broke, and it was nice those second and third weeks in March. So we actually got to see a lot more live pitching than what we normally do because we were able to do our bullpens with their pitchers where they're facing live hitters rather than, just throwing inside in the gym like we've done in past years. So with the weather breaking, we've actually probably seen more live pitching this early, and maybe that has something to do with our success at the plate, early on here. But I agree. I think to get that consistency, you got to consistently see pitching. And, even when you take just, BP with a coach throwing from 40 feet, it's not the same thing as seeing live stuff as far as I'm concerned. So I think, that may be part of why we're hitting a little bit better early on here than what we have in the past.
We're talking with Hononegah baseball coach Matt Simpson. They're getting ready to go over to Rock Island to play some baseball, hopefully today. I've been, we update the scores every night on the StatelineSportsHub.com, and I noticed a lot of the suburb schools seem to be taking those trips to Myrtle Beach and Florida like that. Is that something that Hononegah has ever done or would like to do sometime in the future if money would allow it?
Well, we've never gone out of state. We've gone to Southern Illinois in the past. Problem is the costs are obviously quite a bit. And last time we tried going down south, it ended up raining for 2 straight days, and we didn't get any games. And we're still stuck with, hotel room bills for 8 rooms and things like that. So, I mean, if you got the money and then the support to do it, then that's something that's a great experience. But there's a lot of negatives that can go along with that too. With taking high school kids on things like that, there's a lot of temptations for kids that age and a lot of troubles they can get into. And, we're pretty content with our schedule. We feel like we have a top-tier schedule as far as who we play, non-conference and things like that, and we think that it prepares us well for the postseason.
I'm sure the team has multiple goals for this year, but you look at goal one, I'm sure you talk about the conference championship. What's it going to take for you guys to maybe beat out the Harlems, the Boylans of the conference and get that conference championship?
Well, it's going to be, consistency. Like I said, throw out the Boylan and the Harlem, and obviously those are going to be big games, but, it's those other games where you can't afford to have a slip-up when you're, going up against somebody else's number one, and you may not have your number one or number two going. So I think it's, consistency, number one, of beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. And then, obviously in the head-to-head matchups, you got to play well. And I think for us, it's going to be being consistent defensively behind our pitching, who we feel are going to keep us in all games and getting some production offensively. And, we'll have a shot at it.
When you look at those big matchups, what do you think the strengths are this year for Boylan and Harlem?
Well, Harlem's got 2 very good pitchers back, and I think, consistently up and down their lineup, they have some tough outs in their lineup. And, the 2 pitchers they have coming back are very good. They can, shut anybody out at any time. Boylan's got, probably the best leadoff hitter in the conference back. So the key to them is keep him off base, because once he's on base, he's probably going to steal, and he's a tough kid to catch stealing. They got one of the better pitchers in the conference back, and they're Boylan. They're consistently good, well coached, and they're going to give you a game no matter whether they're in an up year or down year. It doesn't matter. They have the history and things like that, so they're a tough game no matter what.
Is there any teams outside of those 2 that you've kind of identified around the conference that you think could be a tough matchup?
I think Belvedere North's going to be better this year. East has some guys back from last year's team. Freeport has, one of the better third basemen in the league back. So, I mean, everybody has, 2 or 3 kids that it's like, this kid could be any given night. So, I mean, I think you're really going to have to be consistent to win the conference this year, day in and day out.
You're going today. It's not going to be warm over in Rock Island. It's going to be windy and stuff. Do you have much concern about your pitchers with that, making sure they get warmed up and loosened up and all that stuff after the game? Is that a concern, especially this time of year when it's these kind of conditions?
It is. And that started as a concern guess it was 3 or 4 years ago, we played in a day like this, and our top pitcher ended up straining something in his shoulder and missed the rest of the year. And it was a game where we made it to the sectional final, and he's still on the sideline. And you can't help but think of those situations back to that day and think, man, had we not played that day, would he have still had this injury? And so I mean, you worry about it, but you prepare properly and keep them as warm as possible. And umpires are usually good about if they need an extra warm-up pitch or something on days like this between innings, that they'll give them to them. And you just hope for the best, because there's nothing you can do. You can't cancel in Northern Illinois when fields are playable and it's cold. So we're going to go over. We're going to do our best to keep everybody healthy and come home healthy tonight, and move on with our season.
And say, what kind of extra precautions can you take in this kind of weather to hopefully try to keep somebody a little bit healthier?
Well, the warm-up process obviously is going to take a little bit longer, so to make sure that we do that, and the nice thing about high school is if our pitchers bat, you can courtesy run for them if they get on base, so they can get back in the dugout, get a sweatshirt on, things like that. We do little things where pitchers usually have hand warmers in their back pockets and stuff to help with that. But I think the biggest thing is to keep the arm as warm as possible and to take advantage of extra pitches between innings if you need them. And then, just really monitor pitch counts. And days like this, there's no sense in pushing them, to the limit of 100 or anything like that. Get them out maybe an inning earlier than we normally would, and then just rely on your relief corps to get the job done.
And a couple of years ago, they changed bats and all that stuff. Is all the equipment, everybody happy with it now? Baseball's fine. I mean, bats, no changes coming up in the future, or has there been any changes lately?
Well, it depends if you're talking to a hitter or a pitcher, I guess. Because pitchers love it and the hitters hate it. So, offensively, it's a struggle to put together big innings, and that's why, we preach pitching and defense so much, is because if you can force a team to get 3 hits in an inning to score, that's tough for teams to do. So if you're not putting people on via the walk or errors, it's tough to score runs. And if you look at the innings this year that we've given up runs, it's because we've walked guys or we've booted the ball around a little bit and things like that. So I think pitchers love it. Hitters, some of the hitting records we have at Hononegah, as long as these bats are the ones that we go with for the future, they'll never be touched. It's just, we had years where we hit, 40-some home runs as a team, and now we're lucky if we hit 10 as a team. So, it's changed the game. I think it's changed the game for the better. I like the small ball component, and I like the fact that if you, play solid defense and have good pitching, no matter who you're playing, you can be in the game. So, I like the changes personally, but as far as whether you're an offensive player or a defensive guy, that's probably going to be how your opinion goes with the new bats.
So I guess from an offensive standpoint, obviously, like you said, it's good for pitchers, so that probably helps them when teams are looking at them, things like that. What kind of things can offensive players do to maybe stand out, when you talk about college recruiting, things like that, when maybe it is harder to hit that home run or something like that, but what kind of skills can they show in this kind of environment maybe to help themselves out?
Well, I think, just competing in the bats, if you're a kid that competes and you're a tough out and you're hitting the ball on a line and you're not hitting weak grounders or hitting weak pop-ups, and I think that's why defense is even more important than ever. So I think the biggest thing guys are looking at, you'll get that special hitter every now and then that you can watch them swing and you say, yeah, it's a little bit different than everybody else, but I think that's why defense is so important too. You gotta be solid defensively, and then obviously if you're a guy that competes, at the plate as well, those are the kind of kids that colleges like.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for being on today. Maybe you could have got some more sleep. I'm sorry about that, but we sure appreciate you being on today, and good luck at Rock Island.
All right, thank you.
We've been talking to Hononegah baseball coach Matt Simpson, one of the better programs in the area, and you got to have a lot of patience if you're a spring coach. I don't care if it's outside, you got to have a lot of patience.
Yes, you do, because you never know from day to day if you're going to be able to play in your game or event or whatever. Even if the weather said the day before that it's supposed to be fine, every day you wake up here in Illinois and you might see snow.